Hi, welcome to 3 Old Tech Dudes for this week. I'm Timmy. It's mostly just me, not all three. Today we're going to present a presentation I gave to the local ham radio club about APRS, the Amateur Packet Reporting System. So, hope you enjoy and learn a little bit. Okay, so what is APRS? APRS is an acronym for Automatic Packet Reporting System. First off, who's heard of APRS? Most of us who've been around a while have at least heard of it. Most commonly, it's used for transmitting GPS location data to other amateurs, and we'll get into more of how that's used in a bit. It can also, and I've never used this, but it can also be used for sending messages, like short text messages back and forth between stations in a way similar to phone text messaging. And it's very commonly used with high-end weather stations, like the ones you can buy for your house, can connect into the APRS, either the Internet Services Network or the RF one, to send weather telemetry. And so the websites kind of handle that, and I'll show how that works too. So what can you do with it? I kind of struggle with this one. It's to me a toy, but there are some things you can do with it. You can find other hams nearby for simplex contacts. You can track your past location paths to a certain extent if you keep it in your software, and they're on most of the APRS lookup websites for a week or so usually, maybe 2 weeks. Some really neat stuff is you can track unusual things, balloon launches, like carrying amateur radio. Rick in UMJ in our club participates with that, and there's a website where you can look up the call sign they've got on that. They'll have custom hardware that's very low power, transmitting the packets on 2 meters, and they can be heard, 200 miles out by a digipeater on the ground that sends them to the internet, and you can actually see its path on the map. So that's pretty cool stuff. And it is carried on the International Space Station. They don't use it a lot, but they have a radio that's capable of it, a Kenwood radio we'll talk about. And I've seen marine vessels on the rivers, like barges down in Nashville when I was on a road trip last week, were actually showing up on APRS, so that was kind of neat. How does it work? Well, it uses AX25 packets, which were super popular when packet radio was really big back in the 1980s and even the early 90s. And it still uses that technology, so to speak, to send its data. And it's generally on 2 meters. There are APRS frequencies on other bands, but that's where you're usually going to find it. In the US, that frequency is 144.39 on 2 meters. Radios that you're in range of will hear your position, and you'll be plotted on the map or in their list on their software, whether it's a home computer or what I'll show off here with the app, and a portable TNC. And if there's a digipeater in range, and we do have a couple, there's a couple in Bloomington, and they're Rick in UMJ again runs one down where he has a 440 repeater here in Huron that can hear most radios around here. That will pass your information, position, whatever, onto the APRS IS side internet service. I'm just kind of getting my head around these terms. It's kind of high level for me still, but all right, it's been around for a while. It's been, where's my paper? I forgot my paper. It's been developed since the late 1980s by Bob Bruniga, call sign WB4APR. He hijacked his call sign to name it. For a lot of years, it was pretty expensive to put one together. You basically had to have a full packet radio station. If you wanted anything other than a static position, you had to invest in some sort of GPS device when those were real money to interface with. But showing it's been around for a while, this is a display we had just receiving at Field Day 2004, the club did long ago. So some of us have tinkered with it off and on. And even back then, we had the software, this is WinAPRS, which you can still give it, had these kind of primitive maps, and you can see stations plotted on it that it's received over the air. Then the one that really got it going was when Kenwood started incorporating APRS capability with TNC into this particular radio, the TM-D700 series. The first one had a TNC you could interface with a GPS. Later models, like the one pictured, the D710, actually have the GPS built in. These are pretty pricey. They're near $600 for something that just does 2 meter 440. I think that's pretty high. But it has a lot of capabilities, and it's got a famous use because D700 is the main radio on the International Space Station and has been for many years. I think they replaced it once with another one. So, and it's used there for everything from the slow scan TV stuff they do and packet and even voice stuff. They have a couple of HTs on board too, they said, in different parts of the space station. But it's pretty neat. It's one of those floating over our heads all the time. So I'm a tightwad. I'm notoriously cheap. That's fairly well known. You know, if I can use a radio for 20 years, I will. Or a car. But I found a cool item recently, about a year ago when I finally started playing with it. And all you need to build a basic station in 2019 is an HT, a smartphone. Android-based is all you could use for a while, but the TNC I'm going to discuss, they just released a new, slightly pricier version. It does work with iOS devices like the iPhone and iPad, so that's pretty neat. And you need an app to work with it. So the TNC that I used to build this station is a MobilinkD Bluetooth TNC. Mine's a TNC version 2. I've kind of got it set up like they suggest. It's literally just rubber banded to a Baofeng. So, and it's connected to my Android phone via Bluetooth and is running right now. So that's pretty neat. This is the version 2 one that only works with Android. It costs about $70. So it costs more than the radio in this case. So, and the app I use with it is APRS Droid. You can see here where it's been receiving stations, you know, right off the air. And then you can switch to the map mode and see where they're at on the map. So that's one I fired up earlier today when I was putting the slideshow together. And you can see where I was at the time over by Crane. But you can see other stations and the weather stations that pop up. I've not figured out how these work because they don't seem to carry an amateur call sign. So they must be on the internet side is my guess. So I've got to explore that more. I'm not sure how that works, but there's all kinds of symbols that mean various things. Like this is a digipeater. Like if you're transmitting near that, it's going to end up on the internet if you have your path set. But that's beyond the scope of this particular discussion to where it can be repeated. So there's some cool places online to see where APR stations are, and this is what I think is fun. This is probably the most popular one. You can bring that up and just see activity wherever and surf to wherever on the map. And if you stay zoomed in pretty tight, say to like Indiana, it seems to be a site that slows down a bit when it gets enough data. But that's what I enjoy looking at. And also for balloons in particular, there is this address. I'll give you a second to grab that. And it's really cool because it only has like amateur radio carrying balloons, and you can search them out and see their paths, and that's a lot of fun. So last week, this is kind of what got me the idea for this presentation. Last week I went on a very long road trip. The family, we just wanted to go see a bunch of stuff. So we drove all around the South, basically, in the Midwest. About 3 hours a day driving usually from Saturday until that next Friday. And I took this radio and I just set it in the cup holder in our minivan and hooked it to the phone and just set it to transmit every time I drove. So you can see the path here. I started here and it didn't get received a lot. I mean, the conditions weren't great. It's 2 meters, an HT and a cup holder inside a van, right? But you can see this is from APRS.fi. The green line is everywhere it plotted me across that week. I didn't get it turned on right here, or it should have got me in Dallas, but it didn't. But so it draws a line between each point. It sees each red dot. It's kind of hard to see here. I think I've got a close-up on the next slide. Yeah. You can see each red dot where I was received all through here. So I pulled that and thought, man, that's a really cool visual. And thought, let's talk about this at the club meeting. So I enjoyed that. I wanted to see just what this could do, since, I don't know, a mobile APRS station, you usually want to run a little more than 5 watts, I would think, just to be heard by as many digipeaters as possible. But with a $30 HT and a $70 Bluetooth TNC and free software, I was able to pull this off. So that's really neat.
Just an external antenna, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would have. Yeah, I was worried about parking garages because we parked in a lot. Yeah, the TNC is kind of the heart of the whole deal, and you know, Bluetooth's neat. It's just the same thing you use to connect your phone to your car if you have a car that supports it, or a separate wireless headset. It's really easy to set up. The cable comes separate, but you can get that from their website for whatever type of radio. And yeah,
Is this what came out of the paper, the Tucson amateur?
it might have. I know it was started as a homebrew project with an Arduino, but oh yeah, that the APRS itself. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read that part of the history yet, or that far back. So.
Tim, we used them on search and rescue.
Mm-hmm.
We had some of those, and you could put them on a guy that's out looking, and back at the head, the main station, they could watch him, and they could tell him to go left or right or wherever he was out there.
Yeah, if you're in close range, it works really well, especially because you have one guy who's got the app and it's receiving the packets, which transmit once a minute or however often you set your application to do it, and you can track where the other people are. That is one of the uses I have seen, is if you have a search and rescue operation and no other means. I've not tried it. Apparently, if you send the text right, you can actually send an email via APRS, even if it makes it to the right spot. That's kind of what I was trying to figure out. But it's neat stuff, something to play with. So I don't know that we'd ever had an APRS presentation. So that's what I've learned so far. Still learning about it, still experimenting with it. So.
You could discreetly put one in the bed of whoever the fox is.
I was just thinking.
That's right. There he goes.
I got one set up, another half of a D700.
Uh-huh.
And when I turn that on, it just runs over there.
Oh, yeah. Picks it up, yeah. Those D700s are
I
neat.
don't do
So.
anything with it. It just runs up while I bust the other half.
Yeah. Yeah, Kenwood jumped on the APRS thing around that time, and they've made an HT that goes with it and a couple other radios. None of the other manufacturers really have done that, so it's kind of Kenwood's toy you can play with. If you just want to have a nice, fancy APRS setup, you can sink some money into that radio. Or you can be cheap like me. So for a long time, Rick and Jay has helped maintain a weather station at the county jail here. And if you go to aprs.fi and bring it up, I think if you go into the info, you can actually plot a chart of its weather telemetry, like the temperature over time and stuff. And that's really neat since it's coming over APRS, so at least I think it is. So that's what most people use it for, it seems like, is to broadcast weather station information to the general public. So you can kind of see here in the last few days there's been a balloon, looks like up in Iowa. You can see its path. It's running another call W0ISU, probably a college lunch. If you click on any spot in its path, it'll show you what was in the packet it received via APRS. So, you know, it was at 11,978 meters altitude. So that's pretty cool. And so that's why I like that's how you can look up the balloons. And it goes back about 3 days. That's, you know, as long as the data's stored there. So there's something fun and different to do amateur radio. That's pretty much all I got for it. So, unless anybody has any questions, hopefully I can answer them. Well, that's 3 Old Tech Dudes for this week. Be sure to like our page on Facebook and to subscribe here on YouTube. Give this video a like. Give all of our videos a like. Share them with your friends. So until next week, this is Timmy joining you from the laundry shack. Yes, my ham shack is in the laundry room. You put it where you can put it.
So take care. We'll catch you later.
New member application.
Well, technically, we've got her money, and her call sign is KD9MUF, and her name is Amy Ray. Can